What is up? GoodMicWork back at you on back-to-back nights. The WWE Draft 2016 is in the books. The brands are officially separated. A bit of an underwhelming night, to say the least. So far, the feedback on social media is not that positive. There's definitely some good things about the draft, but the overall show still is really making me nervous. I don't know if anybody picked up on this. We've been talking about it for weeks, but the WWE creatively, it doesn't seem like they're taking a whole lot of time in thinking this shit through. And a lot of these decisions are made on the fly. A lot of things tonight didn't make any sense at all. A lot of our questions that we had hoped to have answered by tonight were not answered at all. If anything, we have more questions. And things are a little bit of a mess right now. So we're going to get into SmackDown, of course. This was the very first live SmackDown on Tuesday nights on the USA Network. I was very excited for it. Strike one against the WWE is that these are supposed to be separate brands, that their rosters are to be unique to those brands specifically, and the overall product is supposed to be unique to each show as well. And as per usual with the WWE, they did no changes whatsoever to the SmackDown set. Looks exactly like the Raw set, except it's fucking blue. There's very little that separates the brand visually from Monday Night Raw. So I had a feeling that they weren't going to change much about that, but I was holding out hope that they might debut a different set or whatever, but it's cost effective for them to do it the way they do it. They have the same set for every show and every pay-per-view now, and I think the days of having unique sets other than WrestleMania are clearly over. So because it's only a 2-hour show, they don't waste any time getting into the draft. The show opens with no intro or no nothing because I guess they want to wait till the rosters are set before they make a new video package for SmackDown. So it just went right to the stage. Foley and Stephanie and Bryan and Shane are at their respective podiums, and Stephanie gets right to it and announces the number one pick that I predicted, that a lot of people predicted, none other than Seth Rollins. They are banking on the fact that between his title shot tonight on SmackDown and his title shot this coming Sunday night at Battleground, he will bring that title home to Monday Night Raw. So I thought that number one pick was pretty obvious. The SmackDown number one pick I thought was going to go to one of two people. It was either going to go to Dean Ambrose because he is the WWE champion and you want to draft the champion, or it's going to go to John Cena. And Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon decided to pick Dean Ambrose, very smart WWE champion, and I knew the Shield was going to be separated. A lot of people were telling me that they were going to stay on one show. I think these two guys, or those three guys, have been on one show for many years now. It's time to split them up. That means whenever they come back together again in the future, it'll mean so much more because they've been separated forever. And I had a feeling that Dean Ambrose was going to be the one separated from the other two. So he goes to SmackDown. He's the WWE champion. This sets up all sorts of scenarios for the match at Battleground, and I will get into my Battleground predictions after I'm done talking about SmackDown. Basically what this means is that the main event of Battleground is now an interpromotional match, and whoever walks out of there as champion is going to determine which show gets that title. So each commissioner and GM is banking on the fact that their guy is going to walk out the WWE champion and bring the title home to their show. The show that does not have the champion needs to, I guess, create another title, which is what they said they were going to do originally, unless they've already scrapped that idea. I have a strong feeling that the WWE title will stay on Raw, just because it's the flagship show, and SmackDown will maybe bring back the World Heavyweight title, which I really hope they do. I hope they bring back the old style World Heavyweight title and don't change it up or make some new belt with the big WWE logo plastered right in the middle for everyone to see. Go old school, have a throwback belt, bring back the World Heavyweight title. If you're going to have two world champions, I love that belt. It has so many years of history. I have so many memories of it dating all the way back to the WCW days. So to bring back that belt is what I would prefer. As far as which show gets it, I guess it could go either way. I mean, as far as what we saw tonight on the draft, which I'm going to talk about all the picks here in a minute, and you can see them on the screen, Raw is fucking stacked. So if any show can afford to lose a world title and have to recreate another one, Raw would be it. So it's very possible that Dean Ambrose does walk out of Battleground with the WWE title and brings it to SmackDown. I have a suspicion that will not be the case. Because if you think about it, Seth Rollins is getting 3 title shots in 1 week. You mean to tell me he's going to fail at all 3 of them? I have a strong feeling that that WWE title will be on Raw, and SmackDown will have to be the brand to create another title. But we'll get into more on that later and more on that as we figure out what exactly the WWE is going to do. As far as the rest of the picks go, they only had a few on the show. You know, if you ask me, Raw was 3 hours. The draft should have taken place on Monday Night Raw. I understand they wanted to have a big show for SmackDown's first ever live broadcast, but it would have made more sense to put this thing on a 3-hour show where they can drag it out because, a lot of it was confusing. It was going really fast, and then they have those rules like Raw gets 3 picks for every 2 that SmackDown gets, and it was hard to keep track at times, and I was typing really fast, and my stream was going in and out, so I was trying to keep up with who was going where. But right after SmackDown and Raw drafted Rollins and Ambrose, number 1s respectively, Mick Foley and Stephanie McMahon make a second pick that I really like. They picked the WWE Women's Champion Charlotte. So a woman goes number 2, and that ensures that they're going to have the women's division on Monday Night Raw, I guess. And there are so many fucking unanswered questions. One of them being, what the hell are they going to do with the women's title? What's the point of having women on both shows if the only belt they can compete for is on the other show? So they're either going to have to create a second women's title, which I do not believe the women's roster is strong enough to support that. They got a great group of girls there, but it's not quite recovered from the shit that was going on there 7 to 10 years ago with all that garbage. They're finally now getting respectable again. They have a great group of women's wrestlers there, but they don't have enough for 2 world titles. That's too much. So I think at the very least, Charlotte needs to defend the women's title against opponents from both shows. But then, if they do that, are the brands truly separated? Because you already, right off the bat, before the thing even gets underway, you got people switching shows and having interpromotional matches. So the way I thought they should have done it is have the women's division exclusive to one show, the tag team division exclusive to one show. Now everybody is mixed in everywhere, and you got to start worrying about them bringing back 2 belts of everything again, and that was too many the last time they did that. So I'm a little bit nervous that they're going to do something like that and add too many belts and water everything down, and it's going to suck. Plus, Monday Night Raw is getting the Cruiserweight division. That's going to be exclusive to Raw. So if that division is exclusive to one show, why aren't the other divisions? So that's one big flaw in this draft that I see right there, is that the tag team and women's division is fucking confusing. But aside from all that, I do like the pick of Stephanie and Mick Foley to pick Charlotte. On the other side, SmackDown, their second pick went to AJ Styles, not John Cena, so I like that pick as well. Basically, the first 4 picks in this draft, I was 100% on board with. Actually, scratch that, the first 5 picks, because Raw, with their third pick, picked Finn Balor, the first NXT call-up. We knew he had to be one of the guys that was going to come up from NXT. It would be a huge disappointment if they did not draft him, and they drafted him extremely high at number 3. It wasn't until SmackDown's third pick that John Cena finally got drafted. He had a singles match tonight against Luke Gallows, ended up defeating him, and I think they drafted him after that match. They had a whole bunch of matches sprinkled throughout the card, which in my mind there was so much going on with the draft, they didn't need all these throwaway matches. They could have just had the world title match and maybe one other and dedicated the rest of the show to the draft. It's just to run through some of those before I finish up with the draft. Zack Ryder and Darren Young teamed up. They both have title shots against their 2 opponents, The Miz and Rusev, and The Miz tapped out to the chicken wing, so it's nice to see Darren Young actually use that move that Bob Backlund made famous. Xavier Woods lost a one-on-one match to Bray Wyatt, which was pretty cool. Chris Jericho beat Cesaro, and Kane and Kevin Owens were supposed to wrestle, but that match was pretty much thrown out when Sami Zayn interfered and attacked Kevin Owens and started brawling all over the arena with him. And then, of course, in the main event, WWE title rematch they announced earlier on in the day from last night's Monday Night Raw that ended in controversy with the double pin. Seth Rollins was going to get yet another title shot against Dean Ambrose. That was going to be the main event tonight on SmackDown, and in an outcome that I actually liked, Dean Ambrose beat Seth Rollins clean. That was a big win, and a win that Dean Ambrose needed to have if they want to have him as a top-tier talent. Now he can go into Battleground and potentially lose that belt without even being pinned, and he still saves face. He's got a big victory over Seth Rollins. Rollins and Reigns can go off and feud for the world title on Raw, and then Dean Ambrose can come back to SmackDown as a champion that hasn't really lost everything, and he's got a big chance to be the new world champion over there. I don't think they will just award him the world title. I don't think they can do that. I don't want to see the belt given to anybody. Whatever either show decides to create as far as a world title goes, I don't want them to just give it to someone. Have a tournament, have a battle royal, do something that maybe culminates at SummerSlam or the Clash of Champions pay-per-view that I believe is going to be in September. So since the Shield is going to be split up after Battleground, I think it made a lot of sense to put Dean Ambrose over tonight because there's a very good chance he could drop that belt on Sunday, and I'll get into that when I do my Battleground predictions. Some of the other major names to be drafted was Roman Reigns. He fell a little bit after the suspension there, but he was still pretty high up. SmackDown countered with Randy Orton, which I like that pick. I think I had him on Monday Night Raw, actually, when I did my predictions. And for the most part, by the way, all the big names that I predicted came true. I think I had Brock wrong, I had Randy Orton wrong, I might have had Bray Wyatt wrong, and, Finn Balor I was a little bit on the fence about. But for the most part, I got a lot of these right. And as I mentioned a second ago, Raw did, in fact, pick up Brock Lesnar. Big news story came out on him today. He did, in fact, fail a second drug test that was taken the night of the UFC pay-per-view, I believe. And whatever the substance is, it was the same stuff that John Jones got caught with, allegedly. So this is not good for Brock Lesnar. I talked a little bit about him in my commentary last night after Raw, how I was hoping that at the worst-case scenario, this was a complete mistake. He took something unknowingly or took something by accident or was given something by the fault of a trainer or whatever. So why or how Brock Lesnar did this, I don't know. If it was intentional, that's certainly very disappointing because Brock Lesnar does not need an edge. I mean, what is this substance really doing to Brock that can give him so much more of an edge? And that's why I said in my previous commentaries that to me, it doesn't seem like it's worth the risk. You would have to be stupid to risk your reputation on something like this. So it's just disappointing. I was hoping that the whole thing would kind of be swept under the rug and forgot about, and the media would forgive him and maybe give him the benefit of the doubt and maybe almost get a get-out-of-jail-free card. But this story of the second one coming back positive as well is now all but confirmed, the fact that he did take something. And whether it be by accident or whether it be intentional, at this point, it doesn't matter. It's too late. It's a tarnished victory, and Brock could be in a little bit of trouble. But the match is still on for SummerSlam. They drafted him tonight to Monday Night Raw. They talked about him plenty, so the WWE is just kind of going along business as usual. I know they wish this hadn't happened with Brock, but they don't really have any choice but to kind of ignore it for right now and move forward as planned. And rounding out the fifth pick on SmackDown was another pretty big name, Bray Wyatt. So SmackDown and Raw both have very solid top 5 picks. From there, it just seemed to get better for Raw and worse for SmackDown. Let me run through the rest of the Raw picks right now. They got the entire faction of the New Day, Sami Zayn, Sasha Banks, Chris Jericho, United States Champion Rusev. Finally, Kevin Owens gets drafted, I think on the 11th pick or something like that. To me, he would have been a top 5 guy. I think Kevin Owens' character was livid. He was hilarious on Twitter bitching about the draft before he finally got picked. Raw also took Enzo and Cass and Gallows and Anderson. So that means the club is now split up. AJ is going to be on his own on SmackDown to hopefully be a major star and a backbone of that roster, while the club can live on Monday Night Raw with perhaps a demon. So I kind of like that. They also drafted the Big Show and NXT competitor Nia Jax. I mentioned last night that I thought that she might get drafted, so good for her. Not the worst bloodline in the world that she comes from, so I guess give her an opportunity. The returning Neville is going to be on Raw. Cesaro and Sheamus were the final television picks of Monday Night Raw. As far as the final television picks for SmackDown, they went with Becky Lynch, Intercontinental Champion The Miz, Baron Corbin, Tag Team American Alpha that we thought would get brought up, and they did from NXT, so that was an awesome NXT pick. Dolph Ziggler, Natalya, and Alberto Del Rio rounded out their television picks. Now, the draft would continue on the WWE Network. Another 30 picks would take place on the network, and this is where it really got stupid. They cut to the draft panel and the pre-show panel. They did a whole hour-long pre-show as well before the draft. And now after, you got Renee Young, Booker T, Lita, who looked absolutely gorgeous, and Corey Graves going through the remaining picks of Raw and SmackDown. But this was so fucking stupidly done because they were doing it really fast, and it was like a computer was generating them, but they were making it sound like Shane and Bryan were picking and Stephanie and Foley were picking, but it couldn't be that way because as soon as they announced a Raw guy, they turned right around and announced a SmackDown guy. It was perfectly clear that they had all these names figured out way ahead of time, which is fine. We know it's all scripted, but can you at least fucking pretend that this is legit? Can you at least have Shane and Bryan and Stephanie and Mick Foley sitting in separate offices on their computers, on their phones, making these picks, making it look like they're reacting to what the other person is picking? It's like they picked them all in advance or something. It was just, I just didn't like the way the whole thing was set up. So they announced a handful of picks in different segments throughout the show, and then in between they did superstar interviews, reaction to where they've been drafted, and even brought out both sets of the commissioner and GMs to give some thoughts on it, but the whole thing just didn't come off as real at all. I mean, the only thing that felt real on that whole WWE Network show was Cesaro's promo. He gave like a half shoot on the WWE and the commissioners and this whole mess, and I kind of agree with them. I like what the WWE's doing there, taking advantage of this right away and knowing that now you can maybe make more use of a few of your guys that the fans have been screaming for that have been lost in the shuffle. And I think them having Cesaro come out right away and kind of say, I do my talking in the ring and that's going to be my gimmick and all of that, it's another try. So hopefully it will lead to big things for Cesaro. But I love some of the things he said about the commissioners taking up all the attention, and that's my big concern. Because no matter what happens on Raw or SmackDown, you're going to have two fucking authority figures jumping in the ring and getting involved. The whole thing just seems a little bit stupid and counterintuitive. You got two people there that are going to clash. You know, Mick Foley's going to try to do something, and then Stephanie's going to get pissed, and possibly vice versa on SmackDown. I think these commissioners and GMs are going to possibly take away the spotlight from a lot of these storylines because of all the bullshit going on with them. So the WWE's got to be really careful how they make use of the GMs and commissioners and how much TV time they actually give them, and how to be careful not to cut off the balls of Mick Foley and Daniel Bryan because the fans are going to get pissed. The WWE is playing with fire here, and they're going to get burned. The remaining picks for Monday Night Raw, they got the Golden Truth Tag Team, they got Paige, they got Titus O'Neil, Darren Young, Sin Cara, Jack Swagger, and the Dudley Boys, along with Summer Rae, Mark Henry, Braun Strowman, which was very interesting, and I'll talk about that in a second, Bo Dallas, the Tag Team, the Shining Stars, Alicia Fox, Dana Brooke, and Curtis Axel. The remaining SmackDown draft picks from the WWE Network are the Usos, Kane, Kalisto, Naomi, The Ascension, Zack Ryder, Apollo Crews, Alexa Bliss, Breezango, Eva Marie, the Vaudevillains, Mojo Rawley, and Carmella, both coming up from the NXT roster, and Eric Rowan. Now, what this tells me about Eric Rowan is that when Luke Harper comes back from injury, and I'm surprised they didn't draft him, but I'm almost glad that they didn't, because it's going to be really cool when he shows up as a surprise. So he can come back to SmackDown and reform the original Wyatt family on SmackDown with the original three guys. That's going to be great. And Strowman, because he's such a fucking grizzly bear, he can go off on his own, and WWE can give him a singles run or something like that. So I think that's actually the way it probably needed to be. I think Strowman might be a little lost out there without some teammates. He's still pretty green for the most part. So hopefully he can succeed, and Vince loves big guys, so there's no telling what he'll do with him. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see him kick off that feud with Cass, like they teased last Monday night on Raw. So the fact that they kind of broke up the Wyatts, I think is fine, because I smell Luke Harper coming back and joining SmackDown to reform the Wyatt family, and that's going to be awesome. The whole thing ended with Heath Slater not being drafted, and he's sitting there all by himself in the locker room, which was pretty funny. And we also missed the locker room photos and footage from tonight. You know, in all the previous drafts, you have all the talent back there reacting to the picks and everything. I really wish they would have done that. And where the hell was The Undertaker? Didn't they say he was eligible for the draft? So I thought somebody would draft him, but nobody picked up The Undertaker, which is good. He's such an icon, they just might want to hold him off because they don't know where they want to bring him back yet. You know, they don't have any plans for The Undertaker in the future. They don't even know if he's going to wrestle again, so they have to kind of judge where they are when he decides when he wants to come back. Okay, who should we feud him with? Who should we put him in the ring with? What show was that guy on? So for them not to draft him was probably smart. That way they don't back themselves into a corner that they can't get out of, and they're stuck with him on one show. At least this way, whenever he comes back to have another match, he has the entire roster to choose from. Another major name missing from the draft, and a lot of fans were really disappointed about, was Bayley. Where the hell is Bayley? I cannot believe she wasn't drafted. Now, luckily, there's a silver lining here, because Sasha Banks has a mystery partner at Battleground, and I think that's very obvious that Bayley could be who the mystery partner is. So the fact that she didn't get drafted, it's okay. She'll probably come out as the mystery partner and get the big pop, and everybody will be happy to have her. But the question is, what show will she be on? Is Stephanie and Mick Foley going to pull something off, pull some strings to get Bayley signed to Monday Night Raw so she can be the mystery partner of Sasha? Maybe she'll go to SmackDown. Maybe Daniel Bryan and Shane will have something to do with it. But given the fact that this is a Raw match, I think the angle needs to stay in the Raw family. So they can still write Bayley in. So the fact that she didn't get drafted was, yes, disappointing, but it's not over yet. She's probably going to appear at Battleground. Unless they don't bring her up at all. I mean, hell, it could be Nia Jax. She just got drafted to Raw. Charlotte and Dana have been talking about how nobody's going to step up to help Sasha Banks. If she brings out this monster, the two of them might shit their pants. But hopefully it will be Bayley, and even if it's not, I wouldn't freak out too hard. You know she's coming to the main roster. And maybe her debut will be better than her just debuting at the draft would have been anyway. So it might not be that bad, and I think it's a little too early to freak out about the Bayley situation just yet. And speaking of loopholes and stuff, you got to wonder if there's going to be any trades. What's the rule on that? We already don't know what the hell's going on with the title belts. We don't know what's going on with the announcers. I mean, Byron Saxton, I think right now is on both shows, right? That cannot continue. That cannot continue. If both shows have unique rosters, the announcers cannot fucking interchange. And how ironic is this? Just as I am saying these words, I glance over and see a story on WWE.com. Damn, I'm glad I saw this before I uploaded this commentary. WWE commentary team gets a facelift. It does look like they have in fact created exclusive commentary teams for each show, and we've got some new faces, and this is what I was hoping they would do. Would have been nice if they announced this shit on the actual show, but according to this article here on WWE.com, the new commentary teams for Raw will be Michael Cole leading the team of Byron Saxton and Corey Graves getting the call-up from NXT. He's been doing the Raw pre-shows. I like the guy a lot. WWE seems to like him. I think he would be a fun addition to any commentary team, and he's going to be going to Raw. SmackDown is going to look a little bit different as well, with Mauro Ranallo, of course, heading up that commentary team of JBL and David Otunga. So JBL moves from Raw to SmackDown, which is fine with me. Maybe Ranallo can keep old fuckface there in check. And the third commentary team member is David Otunga. So Corey Graves and David Otunga both got the call-ups from the Raw pre-show. So poor Scott Stanford is all by himself. But congratulations to Corey Graves, and I guess to Otunga as well, but really happy for Graves because I think he's going to make a good commentator. And just as I'm bitching and complaining about how fucked up the commentary team situation is, they change it up and give me what I want. So thanks, WWE. And also, I guess from the looks of it, this might mark the end of Jerry Lawler. Where's Jerry Lawler? I gotta say, it's bittersweet. If they are in fact removing him from commentary on Raw and SmackDown, and maybe he just does the pre-show panels or even the Raw pre-show panel, they move him into a role like that. It's definitely an end of an era, but Jerry Lawler is so incredibly annoying on the mic. He's even had some legal problems recently. And WWE, this article on WWE.com anyways, is playing up the fact that this is the new era, so they want to get some new blood and some fresh faces in there, and Jerry Lawler is a very old face, and it might be time for Jerry Lawler to step aside. Certainly looks that way, unless he continues to call pay-per-views or something like that, or makes occasional guest appearances. But it looks like for right now, Jerry Lawler is off of any commentary team. And I gotta say, I am not going to shed any tears about that. On paper, I really have to say I don't hate the draft. I just think it was underwhelming because we were expecting a little bit more. I think a lot of us were expecting some surprises. I mean, there's been all those internet stories about how the WWE has contacted a lot of former names. Kurt Angle's name has been floating around. And I was okay with a whole bunch of guys not coming in. I didn't want to see a whole bunch of old-timers or a whole bunch of returning stars all show up on one night. That's boring. But I think we would have at least liked to see one surprise. And in previous drafts, they've always made it very entertaining by building up, and there's always like a really big surprise last pick, where just when one show thinks they have the other show so completely fucked, the other show comes from behind and surprises them with a major pick. I was really hoping that SmackDown, since they were clearly losing the draft, I mean, Raw by far has the bigger roster and better roster. SmackDown is not horrible. I mean, I know some people like to try to be cool and claim that SmackDown is better and they're going to enjoy it better, but who you kidding? That roster is not even close to Monday Night Raw. So I was hoping at the end of the show, Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon would have a big announcement and bring out a major star, like a Kurt Angle, maybe even a Samoa Joe, a Shinsuke Nakamura, maybe even The Undertaker or The Rock or something to make the jaws of Mick Foley and Stephanie McMahon drop. But that didn't happen. It ended in a weak way. Luckily, we got a good title match. We got a WWE title match that was actually good, and an outcome that I liked with Dean Ambrose picking up the win. Really good setup to Battleground and all of that. But the draft itself and the show itself was not what I was expecting. So I'm not going to shit on it and say it was awful, but it was definitely B-, C+, in my opinion, at best. So, that brings us to Battleground, and I'm going to try to roll through these predictions as quickly as possible because I'm tired of talking. Had a pretty long commentary last night, and then we just discussed a lot here as it relates to the WWE draft. Now we know where everybody is placed, and it might be easier to predict some of these matches now, and I've got one prediction that might really surprise you guys. So, here's what I have written down for Battleground. 8 matches plus a Jericho highlight reel. So, Becky Lynch is taking on Natalya. I got to pick Becky in that match. I think Natalya's been beating her up and attacking her a lot lately. and it's time for Becky to get a little bit of revenge, so I'm going to pick Becky in that match. The tag team match with Charlotte and Dana Brooke taking on Sasha and a mystery partner. The mystery partner is either going to be Nia Jax, who just got drafted to Monday Night Raw, or it's going to be Bayley coming up to the main roster from NXT. Regardless of who it is, I got to pick Sasha Banks, and the mystery partner setting up Sasha Banks versus Charlotte at SummerSlam for the Women's Championship. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn surprisingly stayed on the same show. I couldn't believe it. I thought for sure that they would separate these two guys and Battleground would mark the final match between the two of them, at least until they wind up on the same brand again sometime in the future. So the fact that they kept these guys on the same show, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it because the rivalry can continue and they have a very storied rivalry. But given the fact that they're probably going to wrestle again now, I'm going to pick Kevin Owens. I think he needs a victory. John Cena teaming up with Enzo and Cass to take on the Club. I got to go with the Club. It's the final stand for AJ and his boys. I would like to see them pick up the win here and set up a big John Cena versus AJ Styles one-on-one match for SummerSlam, potentially for the new SmackDown World title. If not, a straight-up one-on-one blow-off is fine with me too. The New Day taking on the Wyatt family. Lucky Xavier Woods. 2/3 of the Wyatt family is now on another show. He can rest easy, provided that he survives this six-man tag against the Wyatts. I think the Wyatt family does find a way to win this match. Actually, I take that back. Now that I think about it, with Braun Strowman being over on Monday Night Raw, you have to wonder if he's going to keep the same gimmick. Is he going to come out there to the Wyatt's music? Is he going to wear the sheep's mask, or are they going to repackage him? And a good way to repackage him is have the New Day defeat the Wyatt family, and Bray Wyatt and Eric Rowan attack and beat the shit out of Strowman and kick him out of the Wyatt family officially, putting him on Monday Night Raw as kind of like a lost soul. Maybe he becomes a babyface. Remember how Kane was betrayed by The Undertaker or whatever? And he kind of wandered around and he didn't know what to do until X-Pac kind of befriended him and they formed a bond. I can almost see Strowman, them doing an angle like that with him. So I'm actually going to change my pick to New Day because of some Wyatt family dissension. In another interpromotional match, The Miz defending the Intercontinental title against Darren Young. The Miz is on SmackDown. Darren Young is on Raw. So you have to wonder here. I was surprised that the GMs didn't select or draft Rusev and The Miz's opponents just to be safe. Because if they draft the champion and are all happy about it, and then a guy from another show defeats him for the belt on Battleground, you're fucked. So luckily, with these two title matches, I actually really don't think I see either title belt changing hands. I definitely don't see Zack Ryder defeating Rusev, which means the United States title will stay on Raw. But if Darren Young were to defeat The Miz, that means Raw would have both the Intercontinental and the United States title. And they also have the Tag Team Champions, and they also have the Women's Champion, and they also have the Cruiserweight division. And if Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns wins the title, they're also going to have the WWE title. So there's a chance that there could be no belts at all on SmackDown, which makes me wonder if they actually do that, and they actually go in that direction, forcing SmackDown to create all new titles across the board. I really don't see that happening. It makes much more sense just to separate the Intercontinental and the U.S. title, and for that reason I see both guys retaining. Unless for some reason both guys lose, and then the Intercontinental title goes over to Raw, and the U.S. title goes over to SmackDown, but that would fucking confuse me, and I don't want to see Rusev lose that belt. I love the role he's on, and I hope he completely eats and shits out Zack Ryder at Battleground. So if you haven't noticed, I'm picking Rusev to win that match. Jericho and Randy Orton, of course, should have a pretty entertaining interview. I think on the highlight reel, it'll be good to see Randy Orton back. And how about the fact that he's on the same show with John Cena? How crazy is that? Could we possibly get Randy Orton versus John Cena for the 3,463rd time? I think it is very possible. And finally, moving on to the main event, and I apologize if they announce any matches later on this week for Battleground. This is all I have written down, so I guess they could throw something at us somewhere, probably a pre-show match. Breezango, Golden Truth, possibly some NXT talent might have a match before the pay-per-view or something, so I'm not ruling that out. But the only other match I have officially written down is the triple threat match for the WWE title. Champion Dean Ambrose taking on former Shield brothers Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Are you guys ready for this? Are you sitting down? I hope you are. Now keep in mind, when I make a prediction, that does not mean this is what I want to happen. So many of you get that confused. This is just what I'm predicting. So it's not about what I want. I'm actually predicting Roman Reigns wins the WWE title at Battleground. I know that sounds crazy. I know Seth Rollins seems the likely choice. Trust me, I'm rooting for Seth Rollins. I think he should win the title at Battleground and bring the belt home to Monday Night Raw. That's what I think should happen. And he should do that by pinning Roman Reigns. That way it can keep Dean Ambrose strong on SmackDown. But I have a feeling, just because of the WWE's lack of creativity, that when Roman Reigns got popped for that drug suspension, that maybe Dean Ambrose truly was a placeholder. And the casualty of Roman Reigns' mistake was the Money in the Bank briefcase. They don't have a Money in the Bank winner to play with all year long. They had to give it to Dean Ambrose right away. So maybe their long-term plan was to have Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam for the WWE title in some big blow-off. But with the Roman Reigns suspension, that threw everything off track. So maybe they can get back on track, give the belt back to Roman Reigns at Battleground, and he can go into his match at SummerSlam to defend the WWE title and lose it to Seth Rollins. And this would be the perfect place for a double turn. Although I will admit it would probably make more sense for double turn purposes for Seth Rollins to win the belt at Battleground and then lose it to Roman Reigns in the double turn when Roman goes heel. Now that Roman Reigns has been suspended and he's about to come back, the fans already hate his guts as it is, and he's given them now more reasons to hate him. This pipe dream that Vince McMahon has that this guy's going to be as over as The Rock one day, he's got to give that shit up and take advantage of this multi-million-dollar storyline that you have handed to you on a silver fucking platter. Turn this motherfucker heel. But I think an even better scenario, believe it or not, is to bring Roman back exactly the way he was before. For the WWE to completely pretend that nothing ever happened and continue to push him like a babyface and write his promos that way. And have the fans losing their shit. And let them go through that shit for 4 fucking weeks. And then when you get to SummerSlam, you do the big Bret Austin WrestleMania 13 match. I think that could be so awesome. Or they could not do the double turn at all, and they keep Roman Reigns a face, and they have heel Seth Rollins defeat Roman Reigns for the WWE title at SummerSlam, like may have been the plan originally before Roman Reigns got suspended. So I'm going to go out on a big limb here, and I'm going to predict a very unpopular decision, and that is that Roman Reigns does in fact win back the WWE title at Battleground. So pay-per-view predictions can be so boring sometimes. I thought I would get fun and predict something that probably nobody else out there is predicting. So Roman Reigns is my pick to win the WWE title at Battleground. Speaking of Battleground, incidentally, I will be up here, of course, live tweeting during the pay-per-view. I will be home for that with a 6-pack of beer, chilling with all you guys. I would like to say that that's the next time you're going to hear from me, but every time I say that, something happens and I have to come up here with another video. So if I have my way, you will not hear from me until after the pay-per-view on Sunday night, but if we have any more fallout from the WWE draft, if a major story breaks, if we get more Brock Lesnar information, or if anything major and newsworthy and video-worthy happens between now and Battleground, I will probably come up and give you a short reaction on it. If not, I'm going to enjoy the peace and quiet, and I hope you guys do the same. I will catch you in a few days after Battleground. Leave me all your thoughts on the WWE Draft, what you liked and hated about it, your predictions for Battleground, and how I'm going to hell for picking Roman Reigns to win the title at Battleground. So I'll catch you guys in a few days. Until then, peace.